I had been recovering in New Zealand for 2 years. On my first day back in the capital, my cousin Eleanor threw a welcome party for me. The guests at the party were all young ladies and gentlemen from our social circle. It had been a long time since we'd seen each other. The young ladies who used to be close to me were unusually quiet today, each of them silent. Bruce, the heir to the Potter family who used to sweetly call me sister and follow me around, had also grown distant. At my welcome party, the guests seemed indifferent to me, the guest of honor. A commotion arose at the entrance. Damon Ashby walked in with a woman, and the quiet gathering suddenly became lively, like oil droplets scattered on water. My brother was the first to greet them. "Damon, Phoebe, you've finally arrived." The other young ladies, who had been quiet and restrained earlier, suddenly became animated. "Phoebe, come over here. We've saved a seat especially for you." The young woman at the center of everyone's attention smiled gracefully, her movements light and elegant. Beside her, Damon gazed at her tenderly, the two of them looking like a perfect couple. If Damon wasn't my fiancé, I would have shipped this couple myself. My cousin couldn't help but add fuel to the fire. "Lillian, do you see? This woman is the stand-in they found, and it seems like she's become the real deal. If you had come back any later, they might have even had a child on the way." Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I grew up with my cousin. My aunt, being lazy, often left her at our house to be raised alongside me. My mother couldn't do much about her sister's behavior. But fortunately, our family was wealthy enough that raising an extra child was no trouble at all. 2 months ago, my cousin sent me a photo. In the picture, Damon was intimately embracing a young woman who bore a slight resemblance to me. I heard that this young lady from the up-and-coming Doyle family in the capital had been raised in the countryside. It wasn't until 2 years ago, when I went abroad for medical treatment, that she returned to the Doyle family in the capital and began attending various social events in our circle. At first, Phoebe Doyle imitated my style of dress, and due to her similar appearance to me, she was mocked by others as a copycat. But later, people in our circle gradually discovered that while Phoebe resembled me in looks and style, her personality was of the gentle and graceful type, which made her more likable compared to my arrogant and domineering nature. Besides being gentle, Phoebe was also very good at livening up the atmosphere. She would invite everyone to go rafting in the summer, fishing in the autumn, and skiing at popular resorts in the winter. She quickly became a core figure in our social circle. The friends who used to revolve around me gradually gravitated towards her. My brother, Bruce Potter, who initially disdained her, gradually came to see her as a sister, experiencing a warm sibling relationship he had never known before. Even my fiancé, the Ashby heir Damon Ashby, went from loudly rebuking her for imitating me to now gazing at her lovingly, as if Phoebe were truly his fiancé. My cousin, acting as a real-time sentinel, would always send me detailed updates about their situation, making it impossible for me to pretend I didn't know. "Miss Doyle looks like me?" I asked, fixing her with a piercing gaze. Phoebe's body trembled, and she instinctively hid behind Damon. I let out a soft snort. "You all should get your eyes checked." "Where's the resemblance?" Today, I was wearing a white cocktail dress. Phoebe was also wearing white. I had an expensive pink diamond necklace around my neck. She wore a similar style necklace, but with pink pearls. Phoebe was indeed quite attractive. But even though she wore clothes of the same color as mine and similar style jewelry, I didn't think her features resembled mine at all. Due to my words, the atmosphere became very quiet for a moment. People looked at each other, their expressions difficult to read. Phoebe was the first to react, her face pale as she said reluctantly, "Miss Potter is renowned as the capital's greatest beauty. How could I possibly compare to her?" Everyone frowned at the submissiveness in Phoebe's tone. "Lillian, people's appearances are determined at birth," Bruce said. "Phoebe's looks were set from the moment she was born. And it's not her fault if she happens to resemble you. You can't get angry at an innocent person just because you want to be unique in everything, can you?" I almost laughed out loud. If I were really angry, would you all still be standing here comfortably? "You fool, don't you realize I'm insulting you?" I said. Though my words were directed at Bruce, my gaze slowly swept across everyone present. It's been 2 years, and the Potter family's eldest daughter still has such a terrible temper? Before, we only thought Miss Doyle looked similar to Miss Potter. But seeing them side by side, the tired-looking Miss Potter really can't compare to the rosy-cheeked Miss Doyle. Actually, Miss Potter's looks are just okay. As for her temper, everyone in our circle knew about my volatile temper. My father had once advised me that a woman should be as gentle as water. For the highest good is like water. But the greatest evil is also like water. Rather than wearing myself down, why not burn others? Looking at the people in our circle, each trembling after being exposed by my single sentence, I found it utterly boring. You say this is my welcome back party. Yet you all wear such gloomy faces when looking at me, while being so enthusiastic about the unrelated Miss Doyle. Cousin, thank you for arranging this gathering today. In the future, there's no need to invite me to any parties where these people are present. I picked up my handbag, ready to leave. As I passed by Phoebe, her friend suddenly let out a cry. With a sudden movement, the gift box in her hand tilted, and a large white crystal geode slid out of the box, landing on Phoebe's foot. Her instep immediately turned red. In an instant, I heard Damon's angry roar. Lillian Potter, what are you doing? This geode is something Phoebe searched many places to find. She thought it could purify your energy field and benefit your health, that's why she brought it. If you don't want it, fine, but why did you have to smash it? Damon and I grew up together, childhood sweethearts you might say. He was always the aloof one, keeping everyone at arm's length. Even on the day of our engagement, his expression remained impassive. This was the first time I'd seen him so furious. At that moment, he condescended to crouch beside Phoebe, carefully examining her injury. After confirming there was no serious harm, he stood up and shouted at me viciously. Everyone's here today to welcome you back after years abroad. And what do? You spout off a load of cold remarks, smash the gift, and make such an awkward scene. 2 years, and your temper's still as volatile as ever. A loud slap echoed through the room. Damon Ashby finally fell silent. So talkative, wasn't he? I flexed my wrist, retracting the strap of my handbag. A few decorative pieces had fallen off and were now hanging from Damon's shoulder. The onlookers had just witnessed quite a spectacle, their eyes wide with shock. Damon stared at me in disbelief. You actually hit me? Did I need to schedule an appointment to do so? I snorted coldly, you're still my fiancé. And you're defending another woman right in front of me. Did you think I'd tolerate such blatant disrespect? I'd thought my temper had improved considerably during my years recuperating abroad. After all, great anger is detrimental to one's health. In the past, if I'd heard others gossiping, I would have marched over and started a big row. If things escalated, I might have even resorted to violence. Now, it seemed they'd forgotten what kind of person I used to be. And they dared to provoke me. They started it, and now they're upset that I retaliated. Miss Potter, it's all my fault. I didn't know the gift was so fragile. If it had been laid flat, it wouldn't have broken so easily. I laughed coldly, of course it's your fault. You gave me a crystal geode, did you think I was some kind of evil spirit in need of purification? Phoebe cried. She truly was a beauty, her tears were quite moving. As she covered her face and wept, I caught a glimpse of her lips curling into a slight smile. Naturally, it was meant for me to see. After all, from this angle, I was the only one who could. Damon's face darkened even more. He stopped rubbing the spot where my bag had struck him and turned to comfort Phoebe, throwing harsh words my way. I never knew you could be so unreasonable. My brother also pointed at me and scolded. Lillian, what has Sis Phoebe done wrong for you to treat her like this? When we see Father tonight, I'll make sure he punishes you. I laughed, waving my hand dismissively as I turned to leave. Go ahead and tattle. And Sis Phoebe? Any cat or dog can be your sister now? Oh, by the way, I stopped and turned back. Damon, have you forgotten? The engagement between us was arranged when your father brought you to beg for it. Since you're so fond of Phoebe, I won't stand in your way. I agree to break off the engagement. You can explain it to the Ashby family yourself. Might as well settle everything at once. I turned to Phoebe. As for you, do I look stupid to you? I may have a bad temper, but I move with purpose. I hadn't even touched your friend when she suddenly fell. Was she trying to scam me? Don't believe me? I pointed to the street lamp in the courtyard. The CCTV camera at that angle should have captured everything clearly. After my tirade of accusations, Bruce's face turned gloomy. And Damon's expression was thunderous. Phoebe's face alternated between red and white. The others didn't look too pleased either. Their discomfort only improved my mood. I was used to it by now. If they weren't criticizing me to my face, they were doing it behind my back. Did they think I was some pushover who wouldn't fight back when insulted? No need for you to tattle. I'll do it myself. I'll report every single one of your behaviors today to each of your family heads. Exactly as it happened. After all, there are plenty of high-definition cameras here. Your attire, makeup, expressions, I waved my phone. Even what you've said, it's all recorded crystal clear. Having said that, I couldn't be bothered with the panicked expressions of those around me. I turned to leave, only to collide with a man entering the courtyard. His strong hands gripped my arms, steadying me firmly. Looking up, I met a flawless, strikingly handsome face. The man blushed, gently releasing me. But I wasn't in the mood to admire good-looking men right now. After regaining my balance, I pushed him away. Don't touch me, get out of my way. In an instant, the man's face turned even redder, with a pink tinge creeping up to his ear tips. I frowned, wondering if this person enjoyed being bossed around. Lillian, my younger cousin, said weakly, "Let's go together." Oh, don't mind him, he likes being scolded by you. Some people really have strange preferences. He's so handsome, but it seems his personality is quite unusual too. There's a sense of familiarity about him. Noticing me looking at him, the red-faced man quickly introduced himself. Hi, Miss Potter. I'm Harrison Brooks from the Brooks family. The Brooks family? A second-tier family in our social circle. Slightly lower in status than our Potter family and the Ashby family. Before I could react, Harrison thrust a gift box into my hands and darted off in a flash. By the time I was seated in the car, I was still bewildered. Harrison Brooks? Have I met him before? My cousin leaned back comfortably against the seat, tapped a few times on her phone, and an AI voice rang out. Harrison Brooks, second in command of the Brooks Group. The second child of the Brooks family patriarch. Currently known net worth of several £billions. Potentially hundreds of billions if he inherits the Brooks family business in the future. Age 22, unmarried, height 6 feet 2 inches, lower measurements unknown, but estimated to be comparable to a water bottle. My face turned beet red. What kind of inappropriate AI does my cousin have? You don't know him? You had to look him up on AI? Should I know him? I just met him for the first time today. I looked at my cousin with a mixture of exasperation and amusement. Keep pretending. Eleanor also feigned ignorance. Lillian, why don't we take a look at what he gave you? She quickly took the gift box and started unwrapping it. Once all the excess packaging was removed, she let out a wow. I looked over to see her holding a velvet cloth cradling a glass-like, imperial green jade bracelet. Such bracelets are rarely seen even at auctions. I took it for a closer look and slipped it on. It fit my wrist perfectly. My cousin clicked her tongue a few times. Lillian, you say you don't know him, but he seems to know your wrist size very well. I rotated my wrist, watching the light play off the bracelet, and smiled slightly. Although the welcome dinner had been unpleasant, receiving a perfect bracelet at the end made it somewhat worthwhile. Perhaps due to the bracelet's calming effect, I slept very soundly that night. I also woke up early the next day. By the time I finished my yoga routine, it wasn't even 8 o'clock yet. After getting ready, I had my bodyguard go to the Cloud Rest Bistro, the most popular restaurant in our circle, and set up a person-high display screen at the entrance, playing a loop of edited video from yesterday's welcome dinner. Phoebe's provocation, Damon's scolding, Bruce's anger, and others, all with thoughtful subtitles. What each person said, and the names of everyone in the video were clearly labeled. Passers-by, dining guests, and enthusiastic netizens uploaded the video online. And it went viral immediately. Today, the WeChat groups in our circle were immediately abuzz with activity. A bunch of people tagged me, demanding to know what I meant by this. I replied with a smile emoji and left the group. According to the information obtained by my assistant, those second-generation rich kids who were tagged in the videos were all severely reprimanded by their families after returning home. After all, who gave them the courage to dare mock the Potter family's eldest daughter to her face? In the afternoon, Father asked me to come to the study. Bruce was standing straight in front of the coffee table, head bowed and silent. Seeing me enter, he glanced at me sideways and asked in a low voice, "What are you doing here?" I smiled as if I hadn't seen it, walked behind the coffee table, sat down next to Father, and sweetly cooed, "Daddy." Bruce continued, "What are you so smug about? You're just relying on Father's favoritism. Phoebe grew up in the countryside, enduring so much hardship. And you targeted her as soon as you came back." Father patted my hand and casually picked up a book, throwing it at Bruce. "You're siding with outsiders to mock your sister, and you have the nerve to speak. Get out!" Bruce reluctantly left the study. I looked at the door that had just closed. "Dad, do you really want to choose him to inherit the family business?" Father's expression returned to calm. "Your brother lacks experience, and you're being foolish too." He handed me the documents he had been looking at earlier, showing records of people from influential families in our circle cursing me today. It was all the same unpleasant words anyway. These families, they're only living well now because they've been getting a piece of the Potter family's pie, aren't they? I handed Father the prepared documents. "The dog that bites should die, the dog that bites its master should be killed even more." With each page he read, Father's face darkened a shade. When he finished, he slammed the documents on the coffee table. "These ungrateful wretches." The documents recorded how several companies were blocking and profiteering from the Potter Group's industrial projects. I picked up the teacup in front of me, took a small sip, and continued to stir the fire. "Dad, Bruce has handled all these projects. Do you think it was intentional or unintentional?" I put down the teacup and refilled Father's cup. "Previously, these families came begging the Potter family to give them a lifeline, and we did. It's only been a few years, and they're already thinking of turning on us." Father snorted coldly. "It seems they've eaten too well. No matter, I'll make them spit it all back out with interest." My health was indeed poor. Recuperating abroad was half true and half false. After all, no one would be wary of a sickly person who wasn't the heir. On the surface, I was recovering in New Zealand. But secretly I sent people to investigate the Potter family's overseas projects and whether there were any hidden pitfalls. Unexpectedly, there were. And the instigators were those groups that had benefited from our generosity. My birth mother passed away shortly after giving birth to me, not having recovered well during her postpartum period. Later, Father married the daughter of Brooks, and they had Bruce. Among the families involved in this joint effort to undermine Potter Group was the Brooks family, which made Father even angrier. The Potter Group was supposed to be handed over to Bruce in the future, but it seemed this son was so eager that he wanted to carve flesh from the Potter family. The Brooks family has been bleeding us dry for years, using Bruce's name. "Dad, can you bear to see Potter Group become Brooks' property in the future?" Father understood the logic, but Bruce was his only son, so he hesitated. After all, he still wanted to hand over the Potter family to this son in the future. So even if Bruce was colluding with the Brooks family to cause trouble, it wasn't yet time to cut him off completely. Father closed his eyes. "I'll think about it some more. You may go now." It was as expected. So I brought up the matter of breaking off the engagement with Damon, and Father agreed. After all, Damon had embarrassed our Potter family like that. And the Potter family's eldest daughter wouldn't have trouble finding a husband. Worst case, I wouldn't marry at all and just enjoy life. A few days later, news of the broken engagement reached the Ashby family. And Damon couldn't sit still any longer. When Damon came to find me, fuming with anger, I was having afternoon tea with my cousin in the garden. Eleanor spotted Damon from afar and decided to make herself scarce. "I'll leave you two to talk. I've got things to do." she said, retreating to the colonnade, not too far away to eavesdrop. Damon didn't notice her at all. He walked straight up to me and sat down. Lillian, we need to talk. I was in a good mood and didn't mind his rudeness. I pushed the teapot towards him, indicating he should pour his own tea if he wanted any. Talk about what? I asked. Damon's face was ashen. Why did you break off our engagement like this? My father gave me an earful because of it. Do you have any idea what people in our circle are saying now? I leaned back, comfortably resting against the chair. What else could they be saying? That I'm capricious and my fiancé doesn't fancy me? I retorted. Or perhaps they're gossiping about how you, despite being engaged to me, is constantly seen gallivanting around with Phoebe Doyle? At the mention of Phoebe, Damon assumed this was what I was concerned about and tried to explain. Phoebe and I are just friends. We simply get along well. There's no need for you to be jealous to the point of breaking off the engagement. Damon's expression softened noticeably when speaking of Phoebe. Don't you realize that Phoebe was only recently legitimized after being an illegitimate child? She had just managed to return to the capital. Now, because of your actions, she's being sent back to the countryside by the Doyle family. After 2 years apart, why are you still so confrontational? He added. I was bewildered. I couldn't see what our broken engagement had to do with Phoebe. I teased. Didn't you say you and her were just friends? Then why would our broken engagement affect her? Anyone with eyes can see that you fancy Phoebe. Stop pretending to be so righteous. Besides, I didn't force the Doyle family to do anything to Phoebe. How is it my fault if she's being sent away? Damon suddenly stood up, looking down at me with piercing eyes. You released the video from the welcome party the day before yesterday, and then came to break off our engagement yesterday. Put these two things together, how do you think people will view Phoebe? Lillian, if I had known you were this kind of person, I shouldn't have saved you from that car accident back then. With that, Damon turned to leave. Damon was the one who had saved my life. 8 years ago, I was sitting in my family's car after school as usual. Suddenly, a lorry crashed into us, flipping our car over. It quickly burst into flames. The car was upside down, trapping both the driver and me inside. Blood was trickling down, blurring my vision. I heard a man's voice nearby but couldn't open my eyes. I felt him pulling me and the driver out of the car. With a deafening boom, the explosion's shockwave knocked me unconscious. When I woke up, Damon was standing by my hospital bed. He claimed he had saved me. Given the life-saving deed and the Ashby family's social status, along with Damon's personal excellence, we became engaged. After my return to this country, the Potter and Ashby families were supposed to start preparing for the wedding. However, things have escalated to the point of breaking off the engagement. My voice was cold as ice when I spoke. Damon, was it really you who saved me that day? I had thought that after all these years together, marrying him wouldn't be so bad. But upon my return, seeing Damon and Phoebe's inappropriate behavior was too much to stomach. I decided to end the engagement. Now that Damon has come to confront me personally, even mentioning his life-saving act, it's time to set things straight. Damon stood still, turning to look at me in disbelief. Back then, my eyes were blurred with blood, but my hearing was fine, I continued. The person who pulled me from the car didn't sound like you. Moreover, when he rescued me, his arm was cut with a gash about 6 inches long. If it weren't for the fact that you took me to the hospital, and our families were already acquainted, I would have exposed you long ago. My voice was soft as I stood up in front of him. If you're here today just to defend Phoebe, that's fine. But you had to bring up this incident. Did you think I've been in love with you all these years? Determined to marry you because of your supposed heroic act? Damon was stunned to learn that I knew the truth about that day, and that I hadn't been hopelessly in love with him all this time. Fear gradually crept into Damon's eyes as he looked at me. I continued, you say you and Phoebe are innocent. Are these photos I received all photoshopped then? I opened my phone and started a slideshow of the photos. Last April, Damon and Phoebe embracing under the cherry blossom trees at the church. Last July, Damon and Phoebe in the same canoe, pressed tightly together. Last Harvest Festival, Damon and Phoebe passionately kissing at the Lantern Festival. Damon's face turned from pale to ashen. He hadn't expected me to have so much evidence. I smiled, so, you two should be grateful I haven't released these photos and videos. Don't bother me again in the future. When it comes to arguments, I've never lost. Damon, who had come to confront me angrily, left the Potter estate with his tail between his legs. Once he disappeared beyond the gates, my cousin returned. She was holding some unfinished pastries and glanced at the photos curiously, but didn't dare to ask. However, she couldn't resist asking the most crucial question. Lillian, where did these photos come from? Did you hire a private investigator to follow them? I sat down to drink some Earl Grey tea, and after a moment, replied, "What do you think?" "Well, how would I know? I always feel like you're unfathomable. Do you have someone else monitoring those too? You seem hot-tempered, but who knows when you might have already set a trap." I looked at her with an enigmatic smile. My cousin immediately fell silent and obediently sipped her tea. She wasn't wrong. These photos were sent to me by an anonymous source. I traced the IP address of this person, which was mostly in this country. However, I haven't been able to uncover their true identity yet. Whoever could bypass the layers of tracing by the hackers in my company must be quite skilled. "Oh, by the way," she continued, "those people from the families who spoke ill of you at the welcome party a few days ago have all been punished by their family heads. Some were sent to remote outposts in Africa. Others were disowned by their main families. A few of them even got into car accidents. Luckily, they only broke their legs. Lillian, do you think there might be some vigilante out there?" As she kept speculating, an image of someone flashed through my mind. But the impression was vague and quickly faded. I shook my head and prepared a fresh pot of tea. A vigilante? Who knows? These past few days, the high society circles of the capital have been abuzz with excitement. Usually, the gossip columns are filled with various family scandals. But this time the talk of the town revolves around tales of disinheritance and banishment to Africa. Bruce has been ordered by father to attend business school, with strict instructions not to return to the company, unless he achieves top marks in both design and overall academic performance. Phoebe was sent back to the countryside by the Doyle family. However, she returned after just a few days. Rumor has it that on her way to the countryside, she stopped at a holiday resort for a few days' rest. During her stay, a distinguished elderly lady at the resort suddenly fell ill and was saved by Phoebe. This elderly lady turned out to be Mrs. Brooks, the mother of the Brooks family patriarch. Mrs. Brooks took an immediate liking to Phoebe and invited her to stay with the Brooks family for a few days. She even invited Phoebe to attend her 70th birthday celebration. It seems Mrs. Brooks is paving the way for Phoebe's future. The Brooks family, being related to us Potters by marriage, is one of the top families in our social circle. Mrs. Brooks' birthday celebration was held at the Brooks family's ancestral home, with Phoebe specially invited to attend. Only members of the 5 major families were invited that day, as the elderly lady disliked too much commotion, along with a few of our Potter family relatives. When I arrived, Phoebe and Damon were standing together, chatting and laughing. Even Bruce, who was supposed to be studying abroad, was present. As soon as I arrived, everyone fell silent. Mrs. Brooks, in particular, gave me a sidelong glance and snorted. "So, you've come?" Neither too distant nor too familiar. As if I were someone of no consequence. Fair enough, I'm not blood related to Mrs. Brooks. Given our respective generations, perhaps I should call her grandmother? In any case, I have my own grandmother, so I didn't care about this old lady's attitude. I had my assistant present the gift and casually sat down next to my cousin. Seeing that I was ignoring her, the old lady muttered to those nearby, "Such poor manners." I chuckled, indeed. My mother passed away shortly after I was born. I can't compare to your daughter's excellent upbringing, waiting all those years for my father. The people around us wore expressions of keen interest at this gossip. Mrs. Brooks was about to rebuke me further, but seeing my father and her daughter approaching arm in arm from afar, she refrained from engaging with me further and ordered the feast to begin. Though called a family dinner, the dishes served were fit for a state banquet. They certainly spared no expense. During the meal, most people ate quietly, with only occasional conversation. Phoebe, seated next to the old lady, kept up a constant stream of chatter, causing Mrs. Brooks to laugh heartily. I don't particularly enjoy attending such gatherings. They're far too dull. I was about to make an excuse to leave when I saw Phoebe approaching me with a glass of wine. "Miss Potter," Phoebe said, stopping in front of me with a perfect smile and impeccable manners. "There was a misunderstanding at the previous welcome dinner. I'd like to offer you my sincere apologies. I'd like to toast you, please forgive me." I glanced sideways and saw that both Damon and Bruce had stopped what they were doing to watch us. TSK, so they were waiting for this moment. And here I thought they were going to be background characters all day. Phoebe's words sounded polite on the surface, but they were actually loaded with traps. Every word implied that I was at fault, unforgiving. If I accepted this drink, it would be like admitting that I was the one causing trouble at the previous welcome dinner. If I didn't drink, I'd appear aggressive, refusing to let go of a misunderstanding. Phoebe was still holding her glass in a toasting position, clearly waiting for my response. I smiled. "I'm sorry, but I have health issues and can't drink alcohol." Phoebe looked at me in disbelief, her gaze dropping to the table. There was a half-empty glass of wine in front of me. "But Miss Potter, weren't you just drinking?" I picked up my glass and tossed the contents behind me, instantly emptying it. "Yes, but I've decided to stop now." A flash of anger crossed her eyes, quickly replaced by a pitiful expression. Tears came on cue, and she started crying again. Miss Potter clearly still blames me. Mrs. Brooks heard the commotion and came over, leaning on her walking stick. "What's wrong, Phoebe dear? Who's bullying you?" The entire room fell silent. Even the nearby servants stopped what they were doing to watch the drama unfold. Phoebe put down her glass and wiped away her tears, trying to appear strong. "No one's bullying me, I just choked on my drink." She quickly glanced at me, her expressive eyes telling a different story. As expected, Mrs. Brooks lost her temper. "Lillian Potter. Today is my 70th birthday, and Phoebe is my honored guest and savior. I've adopted her as my goddaughter, so disrespecting her is disrespecting me. If you dare to bully her at an occasion like this, I can only imagine what you do in private." The situation escalated quickly. Bruce added fuel to the fire. What wouldn't she dare to do? Recently, she's been giving attitude to all the major families, making a big show of breaking off her engagement, and even persuading father to send me abroad for studies, preventing me from inheriting the company. The topic of inheritance disputes set the room abuzz. Bruce's mother and my stepmother, Vivian Brooks, widened her eyes and questioned father if this was true. Before father could speak, Mrs. Brooks threw her glass of wine at me. I barely managed to dodge it, and the glass shattered at my father's feet. Furious that she'd missed, Mrs. Brooks slammed her hand on the table and pointed at me, shouting, "Who are you to speak ill of Bruce to your father? He only has one son, and if the family fortune doesn't go to him, who else would it go to? You're just like your mother, you should have died earlier." Vivian and my father, Hubert Potter, were childhood sweethearts. My mother, Nancy Yates, was the unexpected arrival. Vivian had always dreamed of marrying father, but my mother's appearance ruined her plans. Father fell in love with mother at first sight and decided to spend his life with her. Vivian was also devoted. After my mother passed away, she confessed to father again, but he was still grieving for my mother and didn't accept. Bruce was the result of Vivian drugging father. As the child was innocent, father included him in the Potter family register and raised him as the heir. Vivian's situation was quite pitiful. If she wasn't the one responsible for my mother's death from postpartum hemorrhage. But because of my existence, Bruce's position as heir wasn't entirely secure. The Brooks family had always wanted father to marry Vivian, which would solidify Bruce's position as heir. Unfortunately, despite Vivian's persistence over the years, father never agreed to marry her. He only kept sending gifts and assets to keep her content. That's why the Brooks family had always wanted to get rid of me, and I'd grown used to it. Mrs. Brooks, at your age, wouldn't it be better to stay out of the younger generation's affairs? And enjoy your twilight years peacefully? You side with whoever cries. I'm afraid this poor judgment might be hereditary. No wonder the Brooks family is neither here nor there these days. You've finally said what's on your mind. You, Miss Vivian, and my half-brother all wish I'd die soon to make room for him. Once I'm gone, Bruce's position will be secure. And if he wants to marry Phoebe, it'll just take a word. Exposed in front of everyone, Bruce's face turned red. I don't have such thoughts. Mrs. Brooks was furious after I exposed their family's dirty secrets in front of everyone. She struggled to catch her breath, clutching her chest as she sat down to rest. Her gaze darted back and forth between Phoebe and Bruce. Though Phoebe was well behaved, given the Doyle family's status, she was certainly not good enough for Mrs. Brooks' grandson. As Mrs. Brooks regained her composure, she realized she had fallen for Phoebe's scheme and been used as a pawn. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became, her face contorting with rage. Seeing the situation escalating, the guests stopped gawking and rushed to calm the old lady, urging me to hold my tongue. The servants quickly brought Mrs. Brooks her medication to settle her nerves. Madam, please don't be upset. Let the young ones sort out their own affairs. That's right, it's your birthday celebration today. Why bother with the youngsters' drama? Just relax and enjoy. Vivian Brooks, seeing her mother so agitated by me, and recalling her own years of failed attempts to secure her position, was beside herself with anger. She tugged at my father's arm, begging him to punish me. Father roared, "Enough." He surveyed the room, seeing how everyone wanted to go after his precious daughter. When his gaze fell on me, it softened considerably. "Lillian, you're not well. Go home and rest. Don't leave the house for a while." Father was ostensibly confining me to the house, but everyone knew it was to protect me from those who might upset me. Vivian, of course, caught on and looked utterly incredulous. "Darling, how can you be so biased? And you're not?" Father's face hardened. Since my mother passed away early, the house needed a madam. When I was very young, Vivian moved in, supposedly to take care of me. She was indeed good to me, until Bruce was born. It's understandable, after all, Bruce is her biological son. I bowed slightly, preparing to leave the party. As I passed by Phoebe, I paused. Phoebe hadn't expected that after all her scheming, which could have humiliated me in front of everyone, it would end so anticlimactically. She bit her lip in frustration. I leaned in close to her ear and said, "Miss Doyle, you should learn a thing or two about stirring up trouble from Vivian." Vivian had been by my father's side for so many years, fending off countless young women trying to climb the social ladder. Her skills were not to be underestimated. Not long after I left, my cousin followed me out. "Lillian, you were so cool today." "Of course, when am I not?" She giggled mischievously and advised, "Don't go to bed too early tonight. I'll come find you later for some entertainment." I was nodding off on the sofa when Eleanor finally arrived, climbing in through the second-floor balcony. She was wearing a black bodysuit that accentuated her curves. I was tempted to give her a playful pat. Behind her was another person in black, Harrison Brooks, whom I had briefly encountered at the welcome dinner earlier. "What's going on?" I asked. "This is my new sidekick," she introduced proudly. "He'll be your driver tonight." "Where are we going?" My cousin didn't elaborate, just urged me to change into black clothes. The three of us climbed over the wall, where 2 motorcycles were waiting in the corner. We sped off into the night. I had no idea Eleanor was such a skilled rider. Almost no cars could keep up with us on the road. I held tight to Harrison's waist, my hand resting on his abs. Harrison tensed up, causing the bike to swerve sharply. "Why are you so nervous? Never had a passenger before?" Harrison steadied the bike and continued racing forward. His body was very warm. Finally, he said in a low voice, "No, you're the only one I've ever carried." We arrived at our destination, a small villa in the suburbs. Security was sparse, with patrols only passing by every so often. We approached the outer wall of the ground floor living room and took our positions. Eleanor handed me an earpiece. Once I put it on, I could hear the conversation inside clearly. It was two familiar voices. "Phoebe, you said Lillian would be disgraced. And her father would abandon her in favor of Bruce. But from what we've seen today, she's far more important to Hubert than Bruce. I don't know if I should keep believing you." There was a sound of rustling clothes. "Damon, don't be hasty," Phoebe said. "I saw in the code book that Lillian will definitely die. Your Ashby family will eventually replace the Potters as the first family. The code book also says I'm a lucky star. Look how being kicked out by my family gave me the chance to save Mrs. Brooks and return to the capital." Phoebe and Damon, how very innocent they are indeed. Phoebe and Damon had no idea that 3 people were eavesdropping outside, as they discussed grand plans to dismantle and steal from my Potter family. Phoebe in particular spoke with excitement. The Potter family are capitalists who dominate every industry they enter, leaving no opportunity for latecomers. We should take this chance to severely weaken the Potters and seize their market share. Damon sighed. "It's a pity we don't know how long we'll have to wait for an opportunity." Phoebe's voice was cheerful. "It won't be long. The code book says that after Lillian dies in a car accident, we just need to wait a month and Hubert Potter will make a major mistake. Be patient a little longer, Damon." They were speaking English, but I couldn't understand the meaning. Finally, on the way home, it dawned on me. So that's why Phoebe has been causing me trouble even though we've never met. It's all to take down the Potter family and become nouveau riche herself. I thought she was just after Damon, but it turns out her ambitions are much greater. She wants to bring down the entire Potter family. After realizing this, I found it amusing. In contrast, my cousin had lost the excitement she'd shown when first taking me to watch this drama. Now she was huddled in a corner muttering to herself. I crouched down beside her and nudged her with my elbow. "Why so glum, Eleanor? Tell me what's on your mind. Are you hiding something from me? Like how did you know they would be here tonight discussing big plans?" She hesitated for a long time, then finally steeled herself and began explaining. "Actually, the code book Phoebe mentioned, I wrote it. Not just the code book, but this whole world you're in is from a novel I wrote. I'm the author of this novel. One day I fell asleep while rushing to meet a deadline. And when I woke up I was inside this world from my book." It took me quite a while to accept what my cousin was saying. That the world I lived in was from a book she had written. She had entered the book, and with her author privileges, she had originally planned to be the female lead. The female lead was supposed to be kidnapped to the countryside at age 6 and live a tragic life. It wasn't until I went abroad to recuperate that she would be brought back to the capital as a stand-in because of her resemblance to me. Eleanor said that all the things that happened to Phoebe, being loved by Damon, protected by Bruce as a sister, saving Mrs. Brooks and being honored as a guest, were originally meant for her to experience. And you, Lillian, were written as the idealized female supporting character who would die in a car accident. The code book Phoebe mentioned is actually the outline I wrote. I was afraid I'd forget key plot points, so I brought it into the book with me. I finally understood. So Phoebe found your code book and used the timelines recorded in it to meet key characters and fulfill the plot that was meant for you. I was still confused about one thing. If this was originally your storyline, why didn't you follow it yourself? You could have married Damon, brought down the Potter family, and formed a new dynasty. In the world outside the book, I prefer women with teary eyes looking at me, not men. So I can't follow the plot in this book. I was stunned. Remembering how clingy this cousin had been, I tentatively asked, "You don't have feelings for me, do you?" "Don't worry," she said firmly. "We're cousins. I won't do anything improper within 5 degrees of relation." "Oh no," Eleanor's expression turned serious. "I just remembered next month is when you're supposed to have that car accident. It's the turning point for them to overthrow the Potter family. What should we do, Lillian? I don't want to see you die, Wah." She threw her arms around me, burying her face in my neck and sobbing uncontrollably, tears and snot flying everywhere. I sighed. Thank goodness the stealth suit was thick enough. After some thought, I called Harrison over. I sat down with my arm around my cousin, looking every bit the emperor indulging in beauty. There's something that could turn the capital upside down. If it fails, your family will suffer losses too. But if it succeeds, your family could become as prominent as the Potters. Are you up for it? Harrison's deep gaze met mine, filled with passion and desire. I'm in. But if we succeed, I want you to agree to one request from me, miss. All right. Eleanor tilted her head. Lillian, what are you two talking about? I patted her cowlick. I'm saying, since they're so eager for my death, I might as well die for them to see. I died. Just as recorded in the code book, I was in a car accident, my body torn to pieces. Only the remains at the crash site underwent DNA testing, confirming they belonged to Lillian Potter. Father sat motionless for days. When Vivian found him, he looked 10 years older, his entire spirit broken. Bruce dropped his filial act and directly pressured Father to transfer all the company shares to him. Vivian also showed her true colors, demanding the Potter family mansion and all the ancestral jewelry and art collections. Father refused, but Bruce knocked him unconscious with a vase and had him sent to hospital, locked away. Meanwhile, I was living in a prearranged villa, watching all of this unfold through the surveillance cameras. After Bruce sent Father to the hospital, I pulled a switch, replacing Father with an elderly man who resembled him. Soon after, an authorization letter emerged from the hospital, appointing Bruce as executive director with temporary full authority over the Potter Group. Before Bruce could celebrate for long, news came that the Ashby family had snatched a major project, causing huge losses for Potter Group. Bruce, furious, stormed into the Ashby house and confronted Damon. Damon Ashby. Didn't we agree this project would be a joint venture? Why does the final tender document only have your family's name? Are you playing me? Damon sat calmly in his executive chair. Why should I share a feast when I can eat my fill alone? Without your father and sister, who in the business world would still give you face? You're not worthy. Before Bruce could react, a clear, lovely voice came from behind. Damon, darling, where do you think we should hold the wedding? Bruce turned back in disbelief. Phoebe, wearing a red dress, walked in coquettishly, not sparing Bruce a glance. Bruce pointed at Phoebe. Didn't you agree to marry me? Otherwise, I wouldn't have told you my sister's travel route. Phoebe let out a light sneer, bending down to embrace Damon. Did you believe everything I said? How foolish. I never liked you at all. If it weren't for bringing down the Potter family, I wouldn't have even looked at you. She finished by planting a kiss on Damon's lips. Well done. Bruce turned to leave but was blocked by 2 bodyguards at the door. Damon's sinister voice came from behind. Since young Mr. Potter has graced us with his presence, he might as well stay. Don't forget to bring a generous gift for my and Phoebe's wedding. Bruce was escorted by the bodyguards to a guest house, where he was treated to good food and drink. Damon forced him to sign agreements transferring shares and making Ashby the supplier for Potter Group. Bruce resisted bravely for 2 days, but eventually succumbed to physical pressure and signed. When Damon thought he had seized power and swaggered into Potter Group with Phoebe to show off, he was informed that the contract was invalid. Damon slammed his fist on the table. You can't just say it's invalid. This was signed by your new CEO Bruce Potter. How can it be invalid? Because he's not the new CEO of Potter Group. Of course, any document he signed would be invalid, I said. The bodyguards opened the door, and I walked in slowly. Lawyer Smith followed behind me, while Harrison pushed my father's wheelchair as they entered together. Damon's eyes widened. You're not. Sorry to disappoint you, I said as I walked to the executive chair and sat down, my fingers lightly tapping the desk. All of this has been a setup, and you've just been pawns in the game. I smiled and continued. I'm afraid all the schemes you and Phoebe plotted will come to nothing. After all, attempted murder, embezzlement, unqualified bidding. Any one of these is enough to put you away. Damon, unwilling to accept his shattered dream and unable to refute, gritted his teeth in anger. Suddenly, he remembered something and declared loudly. Anyway, that big order Ashby Group secured 3 months ago is enough to elevate our status. I smiled without saying a word and waved my hand to dismiss them. Damon's assistant rushed in, wailing to Damon. "Mr. Ashby, it's terrible. There are issues with the raw materials from that last order. A large number of customers have already filed a class action lawsuit." Damon whirled around to look at me. I nodded with a smile as Harrison helped me put on my coat. 3 months later, Ashby Group was embroiled in multiple lawsuits, paid a hefty sum in compensation, and was unable to recover. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, listening to Harrison report this stream of good news, my expression unchanged. I turned and asked, "What condition did you want me to agree to back then?" Harrison set aside his relaxed demeanor and said seriously, "Marry me."